Hey guys, this is Mark. Welcome to FlowRunner training. In this series, we review sample flows included into the FlowRunner training workspace. This video is going to be about implementing an AI chatbot with FlowRunner, and for the UI, we're going to use UI Builder. I will start with a presentation of how it works, and then we will go into the details of the implementation. The idea implemented by this flow is pretty simple. There is a UI page that can communicate with FlowRunner with a specific instance of the flow. And when the user types in a message, it is sent to the FlowRunner flow, and then that message is sent to AI. AI responds back with an answer, and that answer is being pushed via real-time connection to the UI page. Now, it is very, very generic, but what we wanted to show with that flow is the actual mechanics of working with a flow runner that has an AI assistant that really represents the AI element, and provide a demonstration of how data can go back and forth between your user interface and the flow, and then getting AI in there as well to perform the actual communication part to respond to the user. Of course, from the practical perspective, you will want to have an AI assistant that is knowledgeable and trained on in a specific domain. And that is also definitely possible, but we wanted to keep it as simple as it can get, just to demonstrate all the main elements of this implementation. So let's start with a demo so you can see how it works, and then we'll dig into the implementation. So for this, I am in the chatbot flow. Let me start. So this flow, now it is running. There is a companion web page that this flow comes with, and you can see a link to that page right when you select that flow in FlowRunner in the Flow Manager interface. And in the instructions, you will see a link that points to that web page. When you click that link, a web page will open, and it will look something like this. So this is a FlowRunner chatbot interface, and we can start chatting with the AI. So for this, I will ask AI to give me a calculation of a Fibonacci number based on the number that I provide to it. So now I sent this message. The message goes to the flow. The flow passes it to AI. AI calculates the response, and that response is being pushed back into the user interface here. So here for the 10th Fibonacci number, the response is 55. And then now let's say that it's going to be 22. And then again, it goes in the loop to the same flow instance. What's interesting here is that notice that when I provided 22, AI already knew the context of that conversation. And it's just like with ChatGPT, for instance, where you can keep asking questions and the thread is maintained. Here, the thread is also maintained for a number of reasons. One of them is because in the actual flow, the AI assistant that we allocated to provide the backend support, the actual communication support for this flow, we maintain the same so-called thread. And this means that anytime you send a new message, the context of the entire conversation is being maintained. So now you get an idea of how it works from the user experience perspective. Let's take a look at what is going on in the flow itself and how we establish that bidirectional communication between the user interface page in this case and FlowRunner. One thing that I'm going to point out is we are using UI Builder. It is also possible to create a completely independent implementation of the user interface. It could be a native app for iOS, Android, or it could be just a browser-based application that is not built with Backendless UI Builder. So the separation of this implementation from Backendless is definitely there. You're not bound to use Backendless UI. So now let's switch back to the flow and see how it actually works. Back in the flow, let's stop it because we will get a little more details this way. And what you see here is not actually the top level of the flow. So let's go back to this. And when you navigate into the chatbot flow, all you see is this. And that is interesting because the entire flow you might think consists of a single element. And that is partially true. At the very top, it is a single element that is called repeat. The repeat block in FlowRunner works as a loop. And if you're not familiar with the concept of loops in software engineering or in workflows, it is a special construct that internally contains some additional subflow. And in FlowRunner, the subflow that it contains represents a single cycle of that loop. And then the loop really continues on and on and on in multiple cycles. In this case, it has a condition that says basically if yes is true, then go on. So it will continue indefinitely up until it gets this 10,000 iterations. And this is there sort of as a fail-safe check. You can put here, a billion. But the point of this is that if we go back to the actual chat part, and in the chat part, when I type in a message and send it to the flow, and then the flow sends it to AI, and AI comes back with an answer and pushes it back to the UI, that is a single iteration. And then it repeats over and over again, like whenever I type in the next message and send it to the flow, and then the flow processes it with AI and sends it back to the UI, that's the second iteration. So here in this repeat block, in that loop, we can step in by clicking this icon and see the actual flow, the subflow, the logic for a single iteration. So what you see here is what happens in a single sequence that is designed to repeat itself over and over and over. This sequence, this flow starts with an app logic trigger. And this app logic trigger has a custom label which says trigger sent message from UI. The way this works is whenever we have this app logic trigger, a special codeless block is created and can be used in Backendless UI. Okay. And I did mention that this could work without Backendless UI. And in this case, you can just substitute this trigger, this app logic trigger, with external callback. And it's going to work exactly the same way. And this way, you're not going to be using app logic trigger because that one is done mostly for Backendless UIs. But anyway, so what happens is we're using this app logic trigger because it makes it easier to trigger that flow, to wake it up. And then in the UI, there is a codeless block that I will demonstrate that basically sends a message from the UI, whatever the message user typed in, to this flow. So then this trigger, the data that it received, will be recognized in this flow as trigger sent message from UI data. Okay. Notice that the next one, so what happens from here, it logs this message. It uses FlowRunner logger. And if you've seen other videos, you know what it is. If not, I'll mention in a second. But most importantly, the flow proceeds to this block that is AI chatbot. And notice that in the message to this, and this is an AI assistant, okay? And by the way, AI assistants are configured right here. So AI chatbot, notice that what we do is we take this trigger send message from data UI and use it in the expression. And then in the expression, we're referencing a property that is called message. And that property is what is being sent by UI. So whenever we trigger this callback, this app logic trigger, whatever user typed in sits in the property message. That's just how it is designed. Now, this AI chatbot is configured outside of here. So here, if you point to AI chatbot and click here, it doesn't show anything because this was configured in the OpenAI playground. And then in the OpenAI playground, when you go there, you can configure an AI assistant, give it whatever context that you need, specify how it should respond, what it should focus on, just basically create all those, really just a sandbox in which that AI assistant operates. And in this case, we're basically said, hey, you are just a chatbot. Respond to whatever user says. We didn't really apply any boundaries. But the point here is that notice that this is how we send data that we got from the UI to AI chatbot is by doing this. Whenever AI chatbot responds, it will be that response recognized in the flow as AI chatbot result, which is what happens here. So this one, send data to UI, uses AI chatbot result right here. And in this case, we basically got AI chatbot result, dragged it out here into the expression, and we're using this decision property of the AI chatbot, and that's what's being sent to the UI. This send data to UI comes from Backendless Marketplace. So if you click on this icon right here, you will see that there is the send data to UI extension. Just click here and install it in your case, and then you get this guy. So send data to UI really has just one property called data, and whatever data that you put in here is what's going to be pushed to UI. Finally, log message. Oh, by the way, handle error. So notice that AI chatbot and send data to UI have connectors to a special block called handle error. This block is available under utils, handle error, just drag it out here. And then you can connect any number of blocks to this handle error. So if anything goes wrong in here or in here, flow control will be transferred to handle error. And anything that happens after handle error could actually use the information about the error. So we're basically logging this information right here. Notice that the message to log error uses handle error result, which will include information about the error. Finally, if you haven't seen any other sample flow video review, this log message or log error, it's exactly the same, log message block. And it sits right here for me, flow logger. It is also available through the marketplace. FlowRunner logger, select this guy and install it. And then you will get this guy right here. The way this works is that if you open another browser and go to logger.flowrunner.ai, you will get something like this. Okay, just take these five digits, select one of these, really anyone, doesn't matter, any one of these, click configure and put this number in here and click save. So whenever this guy runs, it will automatically send the data that you configure right here to that FlowRunner logger window. That's how this FlowRunner logging works. Now, this is everything that we have inside of this flow. The rest of the quote-unquote magic happens in the actual page. So if you go to UI Builder, and to go to UI Builder, click Quick Access, and right here under Front-End Development, select UI Builder. What you will see when you do this is UI Builder will open up, okay? And in there, move the mouse over in this area under Pages, you will find this Chatbot page. And this is the page that we started this video with, okay? On this page, a couple of things that are interesting. So by the way, we select the actual page. So just click anywhere in the interface and select this page right here, page. And then click this icon, which opens up the codeless logic for the UI page. So here, this is where some interesting things are happening. Number one, whenever page runs, we use this codeless block call flow chatbot, okay? Which this, oops, sorry about that, guys. So this block is available in this section, automation flows, chatbot flow. There's call flow chatbot. This block is needed because what it does, it really creates a new instance of that flow, an instance that starts executing, goes into that repeat block, and starts listening on that app logic trigger, which we will wake up by sending a message to it. But first, you need to create an instance of that flow. So this starts that flow. And notice that we're connecting this block to assign object property. So what happens here is when you invoke this block, the system will come back and it will have a execution ID property. And that execution ID is a unique number that represents that running instance of that flow. So what happens is we basically take the result of this and assign all the property in the response to a special value called page data. And this is where kind of getting into the woods of the actual UI builder, codeless programming, which is a whole complete area by itself in Backendless. But if you're interested in doing this, this is going to be quite important. And by the way, there's a full-blown training on developing UI builder apps in our YouTube channel. Anyway, I'm just going to give you some an overview of how this works. So after this is done, what we do is we basically create a real-time message listener. Okay, and this real-time message listener is created with a channel that correlates to the execution ID. And this execution ID came from here. It was assigned to page data, and now we get execution ID from page data. So real-time message listener is started. Okay, we will come back to this logic in a second, because at this point, what we want to do is review what happens when you click this button. Okay, so you click this button, and then what happens is this logic runs. Okay, there is some validation here where we want to trim spaces and just do some housekeeping. But then what we do is we basically call this internal function send message. This send message uses this run app logic trigger. This is the most interesting part. Okay, this block right here is created and is available inside of our flow category. And the reason it is there is because we are using app logic trigger in our flow. By using that, we automatically get this block. And in here, we can say, well, activate a specific instance of our flow. Okay, and that instance is identified by this execution ID. And notice that we're sending in the body, we're sending an object that has property message, and that message is what the user sent. So back in the flow, in our flow, remember when we were extracting message property, that's where it came from, because we send an object with the message property. Okay. Now, if we step back into our flow, this send data to UI is what pushes data into the UI page. Okay, right here, we're sending it back to the UI page. So now back in the UI page, if we select the page again, whenever we use that codeless block to send data to UI, it will target our message listener. Okay, and this message property is what will contain the actual message from AI. Okay, and in here, what happens is we're basically adding it to the list of messages that we got, and then the user interface just renders it automatically through a process that is called data binding. I know a good part of this review went into the actual UI builder, which is not the most important part, but it really is in this case of demonstrating how data goes back and forth between UI page and our flow. So, and with that, by the way, things look a lot simpler in FlowRunner than in UI Builder, but there is a reason for this. We wanted to make this automation business super, super simple for everybody. I think that's pretty much it. We did review the whole thing, and I hope this is useful. I hope you understood how it works. If you have any questions, please, please, please let us know. You can contact us on support, our support forum, support.backendless.com. Comment on this video and just let us know what you think. And I hope you will start using these techniques in the chatbots that you will build with FlowRunner. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you found it useful. And as always, happy automating.